Alright, so this is my 2012 F-350. It's got the 6.7 liter Powerstroke, and I just did a full EGR DPF delete on it. I was trying to do a before and after video, but because I suck at making videos, I was recording with the diesel engine running the whole time for the before, and I couldn't hear a thing I was saying. So just decided to do an after on it. There's a ton of videos online that show the step-by-step how to do the entire removal, all the points and connections to disconnect on the DPF, and how to do the EGR. It's actually quite a bitch to take out, considering I don't have any real mechanical skills. I just know how to follow the directions pretty well. It took me about 13 hours, and I'll pop the hood here and get it running in a second. I just kind of wanted to talk about my experience real quick and maybe throw a few more pointers for anybody who's doing it themselves. And I ran into a couple issues that I didn't hear anybody else on some of the other videos run into. So pop the hood here and see what she's got. All right, so got the EGR cooler here removed, got the blocker plates in place there. The biggest tip that I would have between the EGR cooler removal and the DPF underneath is soaking every bolt you possibly can with some seafoam penetrating fluid. I had a couple bolts on the exhaust pipes that come from the EGR and go back and forth right here, all those seized, and I had to back them out. And then the back two bolts on the EGR cooler itself is tucked way back in there, so I had to remove the battery and the PCM harness for ease of access, because I was getting close to rounding off the top of that bolt. The other thing that I was doing wrong that took me about a half an hour to figure out was this plate that's installed right here. This sensor is removed from the DPF, and you have to install this sensor from the DPF into, it's a heat sensor, to go into the manifold plate there. Well, the manifold plate has that silver piece protruding on both sides, so I thought it was just the same both ways. I actually installed it upside down, and that heat sensor was not fitting because one side is bigger than the other. So I removed like 3 other sensors to see if they were different sizes, and they were all the same size. And the problem was that I had that plate installed upside down, so that needs to be facing the correct way to put the sensor in. Let's see, the other thing I did wrong was I programmed the H&S tuner to the stock tune before I ripped everything out. What you're supposed to have done, and this cost me about an hour of time and a truck that didn't start up when I tried to start it up, you need to load the tunes for the EGR DPF removed before you actually remove everything. I did it the other way around, so make sure that your tunes are loaded for the EGR and DPF not being in there before you start the truck with everything removed. The other thing I have installed is a BD exhaust valve brake that kind of functions as an engine brake, but it uses the turbo to create back pressure to slow the vehicle without using your brakes. It's a really cool tool to have because I'm pulling a 16,000 pound fifth wheel. If you're using an aftermarket brake, specifically the BD, what you have to do is because the BD exhaust brake uses the OBD port that's stock on the truck, you need to have the tunes loaded with the exhaust brake disconnected. It's really easy. It takes 15 seconds to disconnect it from the OBD port. Make sure that if you're going to use an aftermarket exhaust brake like that, you load the tunes with the brake disconnected first. Once the truck's up and running with the correct tunes, then you can reinstall the engine brake. So overall, from beginning to finish, this has been a really incredible upgrade for performance. The power's through the roof. It sounds like a friggin' monster, and the gas mileage has gone up about 6 miles to the gallon so far just driving around town in stock mode. So I do have the before exhaust, which I'm gonna put in, which I'm gonna play right now, and then I'll start her up and do an after exhaust as well.